welcome to the KQT Town Hall. We're so excited to be gathering again. It's been a little bit, so it's really good to see your faces on the screen. Some new folks. I know I see a lot of new folks, so I'm really excited. And just to be in the presence of our beautiful selves, once again. I know I've missed y'all, and we've missed having the space. So we're super excited. I wanted to kick off the session today with a land acknowledgement. And so I'll be reading a little bit of something that was adapted from other spaces that we've been in. We had on the first slide showing the dots of the map. We're across different spaces. So as a KQT community, we want to make sure to acknowledge and state that we owe our existence and vitality to generations before us who contributed to our hopes, dreams, and energy in making history that led us to this moment that we are in right now. As KQTs living on Turtle Island and beyond, we take a moment to acknowledge the people who were brought here against their will, those that were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life, and those who have lived on this land for more generations than we can count. In acknowledging our lineage, truth, and acknowledgement of colonization, remnants of the endless war on the Korean Peninsula, family separation, assertion of borders, and its connection to the history of those we are in solidarity with, we continue to build across barriers of heritage and difference. We also continue to bring voices to stories that have been buried by honoring the truth. Those who have joined us from various parts of Turtle Island, we enter this space recognizing the impact of being on ancestral lands, personally being on Lenape people's land. We take this moment to consider the legacies of violence and displacement, migration, and settlement that has brought us to these lands and the impact that has on Indigenous sovereignty. And we continue to dedicate to uncover and name truths so that the lands are returned back to its original stewards and caretakers. So if we can just take a moment. I'm going to pass it to me. Thank you.
My name is Me. I use they, them pronouns. I am joining in from the land of the Three Fires Council, which is now known as Chicago. We'd like to take a moment and recognize that we have gone through a lot this year, yet again, and with COVID and another slew of natural disasters that have impacted our communities across the world. And recently, communities in our Midwest, Central, and Southern states have been impacted due to some severe tornadoes that have come through. And so I just wanted to take a moment and recognize that these hardships are alive and very real, and hold this weight with folks who may be struggling with today.
My name is Tanbi. I use they, them pronouns. I'm based in Coast Salish, Duwamish territory, currently known as Seattle, Washington. And I also just wanted to uplift a community and thought leader. This week, we were met with the unfortunate news of the passing of radical Black feminist author, thought leader, and scholar Bell Hooks. Her work has influenced me personally, and I know many other organizers, scholars, activists, community members, giving language to our experiences and reminding us that theory and practice are inherently intertwined and constantly influencing one another. Her work and that of other radical Black feminists has deeply influenced the work that we do at KQTx. And as me mentioned before, we do also want to recognize the impact that COVID has had and continues to have on our communities over the past 20 months or so. And I would like to offer a quote from Bell Hooks that states, "Rarely, if ever, are any of us healed in isolation. Healing is an act of communion." And I hope that this space can provide a small oasis for us all today as we gather virtually as well. And with that, I will pass off to Sandy.
Thanks so much, Tambi. It's wonderful to see you all in this space, and thank you very much for just being with us during these grounding acknowledgements as we're all easing into this space. And so there are certainly people who are here for the first time, and there are also people who we've seen in spaces before. And so again, we appreciate just everyone taking the time to ground together. So finally, what we want to offer is a dedication. And this is in remembrance and acknowledgement of the many KQTs who are not here with us today for reasons we may or may not know. Today's specific gathering is dedicated to Nuri Lee Kim, whose birthday is today. And in honor of their birthday today and in remembrance of their fierce joy, their powerful contribution to the historical convening KQTCon in 2018, and the countless lives they have touched as a cherished community member, organizer, friend, comrade, and beloved family member. We dedicate today's gathering as an expression of the work they pursued around healing ancestral trauma within the Korean queer trans community. And so as a grounding practice for all of us, we invite you to bring a candle, incense, or some physical item to have by your side during this gathering that you might find as a grounding presence to devote and remember Nuri, as well as any community member you'd also like to lift up today. And we encourage you to also name or invoke community members who you'd like to lift up in the chat at this time. And perhaps just before we really jump into our agenda, we can take just a moment of silence together for all that's been said so far by the facilitators. Thank you so much. So as we mentioned in our confirmation email about this gathering, the first hour of this Zoom gathering will be the steering committee of the KQTx National Network sharing some background information about the network and also some very exciting updates about what we hope to look forward to in 2022. There will be a decent amount of talking and probably sharing on screen. And so please take care of yourselves and we'll go over some guiding agreements so that we can all have a comfortable experience today. And the second portion of the event will be devoted to connecting with community. And so we'll have some breakout room options for folks to be able to get some FaceTime with one another.
Welcome again. Thank you for taking the moment to lay some foundation with us. Today we're hoping to, as it says on the slide in the little points, is to build relationships with other KQT community. Also to share updates from the KQTx steering committee, and then also to spark inspiration in our network. I know that a lot of us are creative, innovative, and have different things that we're personally working on, or are just brewing under the surface. So we're hoping that each time that we gather that we're able to inspire one another, and able to cheer each other on in those generative, innovative things that we're bringing to the table. Another thing that we want to build into our foundation is just naming out loud that us as KQTs of the diaspora is a revolutionary act. Being in this space together is a revolutionary act. Having about the last time I checked the number, having 35 KQTs in one space is revolutionary. So just being able to take that moment to recognize that, and also acknowledging the the beautiful complexity that like being of Korean queer and trans existence is. And thanking you for being here. So.
Thanks, Tate. And yes, on that note, what that really means is that, you know, we're bringing a lot in with us according to how we identify. You know, we received some questions from the registration form where folks, you know, wanted to know, are Koreans of mixed race experience welcomed? Are Koreans of adoptee experience welcome? And the answer to that is absolutely, and beyond, because there are so many intersections of our Koreanness, our queerness and transness that is so often overlooked and invisibilized. And so we sent these guiding agreements as a way for us to really embody safer and more inclusive space together. And we really want you to build on these agreements as well. They are not set in stone. They are co-created over years and years of conversations we've had within the queer trans Korean community. And we hope you will also be a part of adding to that. So thank you so much, everyone, again, for just all of the grounding. And this is really, really what we also hope to steward, which is a very KQT specific type of facilitation that allows everyone to come in as whole as they can be. The next portion of time is going to be devoted to offering a little background about KQTx.
Great, thank you, Sandy. I'm John, I go by he and pronouns. I'm located in Chochenyo Ohlone Land, also known as Berkeley, California. It's really wonderful to be in this space with some familiar faces and folks that I haven't connected with in some time, and so much amazing energy and leadership. As Sandy said, I'll provide some background in terms of who is KQTx, where did we come from, and what have we accomplished to date. And this will be kind of a quick hits. So I invite anyone that if I've missed something or got something wrong, please invite you to also add that to the chat, since I won't be able to cover everything. So how did we, where did we come from? There's been so much history of KQT, queer, trans, non-binary, community building, organizing, activism over the decades in the US, probably much, much longer here in the peninsula and other places. And so this particular stream of work really began in the mid 2010s. After some of the same-sex marriage organizing had occurred, parents had organized in response to, and Korean American activists, Korean trans Korean American activists had responded to some of the anti-LGBT sentiment in the Korean American community, which, as this survey shows, ranks among the highest of AAPI communities. So we were seeing a lot of anti-LGBT sentiment, and a lot of people were being impacted by that in different ways on an ongoing basis. So this led to a group of activists coming together. And so they included members of the Tadi Project, members of CARP, members of Encapia, and also other individual activists who said, we have this great history. We have this amazing parent and ally movement in the Korean American community. We'd love to help reactivate Korean queer and trans organizing as well. And so in 2016, a workshop was held to really say, what is possible here in this point in time. There was a survey that was disseminated and really asked about what people needed at this point. And a proposal was made to convene nationally a group of KQTs. And so after that meeting at an Encapia event in New Orleans, a group of us continued to organize, and nearly 2 years later, through all volunteer efforts and a really big push and a lot of love and care and also struggle. On the next slide, you'll see highlights of KQTCon, which occurred in April 2018, which was a gathering of over 200 Korean, queer, and trans individuals, parents, family members, allies, accomplices. And it was a 3-day event that really centered around the 3 themes of family acceptance, faith and spirituality, and mental health. Mia Mingus was our keynote speaker. And some of the things that we heard from attendees was, I've never been in a space with so many other KQTs before. I've never felt so welcomed. And I think it was such a wonderful energy that emerged, and really sharing what different members of the community were working on. And I think after this, we started to reflect on how significant was this moment for us. And so you'll see here a timeline of some of the past KQT Korean American organizations that we're aware of. And at that point in time, not very few were active, and there were some emerging ones, some of that were more informal. And then after KQTCon, we saw all this energy emerge. Organizations began to grow and formalize, like KQT DC. Others started to grow and have very specific focuses, like KQTx Project, which is around storytelling and artistry and performance. And so we started to see this really amazing blossoming. On the next slide, you'll see some photos of what we started to share among the different KQT groups. And so we started to host these national leadership calls, where leaders of the groups could share what they were doing, also to support each other through this. And taking that further, we came together in 2019 to see, with all this energy, what can we do next? Should we do another conference? Should we do something to support local groups? We came up with a proposal for what a network of KQT organizations could do, and then COVID happened and things began to shut down in March of 2020. And so KQTx really shifted to provide online community space for individuals who were surviving the pandemic. And one thing I like to say is that in February of 2020, everyone hated Slack. In April of 2020, everyone loved Slack because it was a space they could really find support and comfort in each other. And now we have, I think, around 300 individual members of Slack, which is so many more people than were actually at KQTCon, the conference in 2018, which I think is really significant. Moving forward, we also began to build leadership. So we invited folks to move into leadership to help us build out the organization and to build the capacity of emerging leaders. And so again, you see the current steering committee of really amazing people. And also this is our second steering committee. There was our first last year and interim leadership before that, including some folks on the call today. And we started to do things like publish a newsletter really early on, just to share all the virtual events that were happening in 2020. So we were sharing updates, really making visible the accomplishments that KQTs were achieving. And also in so doing, also starting to share a vision for what the network could be in terms of redefining Koreanness, practicing radical welcome, lifting up the political and justice work that KQTs were doing, as you see here, for example, with Elim in Georgia. And here's a snapshot of the many different types of really innovative activities and workshops and events that KQTs were hosting that ranged the gamut from game experiences to art events to social support. And we also built up the capacity of the KQT community to be facilitating and hosting spaces in better, safer, more welcoming ways. And so here is something that I think KQTx New York City originated with a free open source set of tools for KQT facilitators, specifically around supporting Korean queer and trans folks. And for this work, we also supported how we could resource our organizations. And so we've done a lot of fundraising as KQTx, some in collaboration with local groups. And yeah, we thank the generosity of our community members and our funders. And this is my last slide, so I'll queue up what we want to share more of today. Is that as KQTx saw that there was an ongoing need for us as a national organization to be serving the community, we started to ask the question of not only what could KQTx do, but what should we do? How do we envision impact based on the needs of our community? What are we uniquely positioned to achieve as an all-volunteer group? And by getting really sharp and being really transparent about that, what are we able to say yes to in terms of our programs and activities, and what are we saying no to in order to honor our energy and to deepen our impact? And so we engaged in a 9-week process to explore what a North Star could be for us. You'll see the 3 examples on screen here. We collaborated with community members and got some really great feedback. And yeah, I think really proud of the work that we did together and exciting for where we're headed moving forward.
Hi everyone, my name is Young Sun. I use he, him, they, them pronouns, and I'm based on unceded Lenape Hokie land, also known as New York. In this theory of change process, we realized that the KQT community is full of many inspiring independent leaders and creators like yourselves. And we were kind of doing an inventory of what makes up our diverse KQTx community. And in that are individuals and organizations, including arts and storytelling collectives, political organizers and educators, activists and community organizers, faith and spirituality leaders, including healers, artists and creatives. And so we were thinking about what would it look like if KQTs existed in stronger relationship together, rather than being separated in our individual practices. What if we collaborated and co-created across shared values and principles, knowing that many of us also straddle these different practices as well. So the goal in bridging these different practices together is to build power and agency and redefine Koreanness together by using our diverse skill sets. So the North Star that we settled with is enabling Korean queer and trans cultural creation and connection. And we aim to boldly share our stories with the world, build stronger relationships and accountability, and amplify the many ways we are connecting with and caring for ourselves as queer and trans people of the Korean diaspora.
Thanks so much, Young-sun. And so we've had a lot to share with you about what we've been working on in the past 6 to 12 months, especially in response to all of the complex changes that have been happening in the world and across all of our different identities and experiences. And so in the effort of enabling Korean, queer, trans cultural creation and connection, we understood that there would need to be some foundational elements in order for that to really be successful. And so moving forward, what we're really excited to share with you is how we intend to do that. The first thing that we knew we needed to articulate was a lot of things that we were already practicing in community, but we hadn't yet really put it down pen to paper. And so we're very excited to share with you all the first version of our KQTx guiding principles. We know that words and language are not perfect, and yet it is important that we attempt to try and articulate what it is that we mean, where it is that we wish to go, how it is that we wish to collaborate and be in relationship with one another. And so we hope that the community will take these guiding principles and use it as a starting point to build. And then in addition to the guiding principles, another resource that we're very excited about sharing is a facilitators toolkit, as well as an update to our facilitators training. And this is, again, another effort for us to really empower the community. And finally, another resource that we are very much looking forward to launching in 2022 would be an affinity spaces program, which aims to really take those facilitation skills and put them into practice.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. And a lot of the goals that we have for all of these pieces is to inspire like collaboration and like co-creating with each other. Because the steering committee is like laying down the foundation for each of these, but like we definitely want to we just want to continue providing space and like the ability to like empower folks to take the reins and to share different passions and interests and things that bubble up in our community that that are needed, because we know like different people have different perspectives on like what we can do as a community. So hopefully like we can continue fostering that as we move forward with those like certain foundational elements. A few of the other like goals that we have is like meeting with partners and like other like folks that are doing organizing or like different forms of like cultural creation in our community, because we know there's an abundance too. So like how do we continue like partnering and filling in gaps and like sort of mapping out like what the landscape of our community organizing looks like and creation looks like, and how do we like dream together even bigger.
So we've just said a lot. We know it's a lot to process. But really the second portion of the gathering today is really to kind of turn it over to you all. And so we really want to first just put this question out there for you to think about as we move into a break. But as you can see, there are a lot of different ways for you to plug in. And for some of us, that might mean I'm really just easing into the information. And so let me just sign up for the newsletter and I'll wait to hear more updates. For some of us, we might be fired up and ready to go. And for that, we are so grateful. And we have a sign up form to volunteer. We also have a sign up to join the Slack, as we mentioned, where you can chat with KQTs from all over the globe. And we also really want to offer the ability to join our steering committee and be a part of this next chapter of decision making in co-creation with the community. Thank you so much again, everyone, for your time and attention. We'll hopefully have this recording edited and ready for view, especially for those of us who weren't able to make it to today.